Good day, my name is Erich Schoeman and welcome to My Story, My Testimony. This is a program where we have interviews with people from all walks of life about what the Lord has done in their lives, and they come and tell their story to us. It's a big privilege today. We have in the studio Robbie Wessels. He's a well-known South African singer and the Lord has done amazing things in his life. Robbie, welcome to the studio at My Story.
Erich, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
I know the Lord has walked a road with you, especially on Burnout.
Yes.
Tell us a bit more about where this all started.
I think it started in 2010, where I left the industry where I was working on. For about 6 months, I went overseas to do a Christian course there. And there I committed my life to the Lord, fully. And it was kind of a turning point where you get to that point where you feel like, okay, this is all or nothing. Yes. I remember a lady there was saying, you have to choose. She felt on her heart, the Holy Spirit said, there's still people that's with their one foot in the world and one foot with the Lord. And I immediately knew that was me, So I think that's where my walk with the Lord really started passionately, and for me, I'm a passionate guy. I think it comes with my character, with my line of work. I'm in the music industry and I'm writing songs. It's got a lot to do with feel and passion, So at that stage, I was fired up for the Lord. Obviously, I was for 6 months, studying His Word and just really getting to know Him, and so I came back and I was also at a place where I knew I had to be in the industry, the music industry. So from there, my way of thinking and my way of writing music made a sharp turn,
yes.
And I realized the bigger picture, the bigger purpose on my life. So it was a passionate thing for me in now starting to really write songs and perform in a way that I felt like, okay, how is the Lord wanting me to do this? How do I perform to enhance His kingdom? So it became that thing, and also to a place where at one stage, I think it was 4 years later, where I felt like I wanted to do another course, a Bible school course in the same company that I did it in 2010. So that's where the Burnout thing started for me, because I did 2 of these courses. It was a 2.5 month Bible course that I did. It was an on-location course. So it started in Switzerland, then it went through the Middle East, 9 different places where we studied the Word on the locations,
sure, where
it happened, and I did that 2 years in a row. So it shortened my year in those 2 years. Those 2.5 months sessions, and I think it just got too much, especially at the second one, and I think that's where I felt the burnout.
Because you were still maintaining your singing career.
Yes.
At the same time, so that was almost a double crunch.
I always do a certain amount of shows a year. It's not a lot. It's like 40, a year, and then so in doing still that same amount of shows within that 2.5 month breakaway, with that intense thing, and then I don't just do the 40 shows. There's a lot of other acting stuff that I do through the year, and I think those 2 years was just too intense for me,
And especially because you put heart and soul into what you're doing.
Yes.
And you said the Lord directed you. He changed the way you did things. So you were very serious about how you do things. So the Lord then started working with you, but you were getting more and more tired.
One of the challenges, especially in our industry, is it's also because it's such an high adrenaline thing, and it's such a fun thing on stage, and sometimes you really, it's an art on its own to really rest.
Yes.
And I think within my personality and the crazy stuff that I do sometimes, I have that personality, and so I think it was a combination of not knowing how to rest, in those busy seasons, but also being too busy in that time, I think.
You're saying a very important thing. It's an art to learn how to rest. You don't just get that rest and relaxation, the R&R, by just going and sitting in front of the TV or doing something. It is something that you learn, and I've also struggled with burnout myself. So I realized that I would stay very tense and I couldn't just relax on my own. I had to learn how to switch off and how to get to a place where I really relax. What happened with you with that struggling with relaxation, and where did you end up?
I think, Erich, in that time, that 2 years in a row of being so busy, and especially I think because it was a spiritual experience, that whole 2.5 month period that I did, I think, it became definitely it became too much in a way that you feel like, yes, you don't know how to rest anymore, and then I think the big thing was the second year that I did it. The first year I was just a student in doing that course, and the second year they actually invited me back and asked me if I could, kind of take a leadership role on where I did the worship of the team. So it was a team of 23 people that I was kind of now not in charge, but kind of they gave me the job of leading the worship. So now there was this responsibility on me, and I think, what made part of this is the fact that I was, I think, busy with my shows. Now I went and did that, and I felt this responsibility on me. And what happened to me, and something that me and you also discussed quite a lot of times with the sessions we had, was that thing of starting to get into a performance mode. I think it's a reality. I think it can happen without you even knowing. Like we discussed it, it comes probably from your childhood. It's a thing of where unconsciously you think that you have to, even without you even knowing it, unconsciously you think that you need to do or perform or be successful in something to be pleasing to the Lord. And I think when you get even in that busy place and you start kind of with the burnout process, I think it can so easily get back and you go into that performance mode where you feel like you have to do stuff all the time for God to be pleased.
That is tremendous, because when we look at burnout, and you're mentioning the way that you approach your work and the way that you approach yourself, that is that performance mode has to do with trying to get and to do something perfectly, and especially now that you're going to do it for the Lord, that it's as if there's additional pressure that is experienced, and then you almost put that pressure on yourself then to say, but I have to now, I should do this, I must get this right, and then that's just too much. That's just too much, and it's out of a sincere place of pleasing the Lord. But when we look at the new covenant reality of where we are in Christ, we are already pleasing to the Lord because of what Jesus did at the cross. So that's the revelation that actually lifts the burden, that you don't have to try to please the Lord. He is already pleased. It is a matter of actually thanking Him and just loving Him and enjoying Him. But that is not what you experience, and I can relate with what you're saying, because my own personality tries to do things almost perfectly, and I put that additional pressure on myself, and it creates anxiety, doesn't it?
Yes.
And that anxiety just drains you.
There also comes a thing of where that performance or that trying to please the Lord belief becomes so strong, and that's something that I've, in that season, that now that I think back, was so intense for me, was it's almost as if it's getting worse. You're going, the more you actually feel like you have to please the Lord, the more pressure you put on yourself. That feeling is so intense.
Yes.
I remember just this one story, and I just want to feel like I want to share it.
Please do.
On that tour, on that trip that we did, I really felt, urge in my heart that the Lord said, we as a team should go and just worship somewhere, wherever in the streets of Jerusalem or wherever. I really felt like the Lord was saying it. And for some reason, it worked out that the other team leader had something else in mind for the team to go and do, and so it didn't happen. I felt like we should have done it 5 o'clock or whatever the one night, and I was telling the team and her about it, and it just didn't happen. And I remember how long it took me to get over that. I felt like, I think it took me 2 days almost to get over the feeling that I missed the Lord, and I missed an opportunity where He told me something and we didn't do it. And I think there was kind of where, now that I think back, that was almost the start of this thing,
yes,
where it really came into my mind and my heart that I should constantly be doing the right thing for the Lord and whatever He says. And it got this obsession that I shouldn't miss anything.
Sure. And that becomes very hard. And it becomes a very tense and anxious place, because now you felt extremely guilty that you felt you missed the Lord, and it's as if that almost placed you under a certain kind of judgment, and it's as if we sometimes, when we go through that experience, that we put ourselves under that judgment. You now missed the Lord, and therefore you are guilty, and the Lord is not pleased with you, and that brings shame. And that's very hard, isn't it? And that just drains you, and it sucks the life out of you, and then causes you to be very uncertain and doubtful and fearful. And I could hear that it had a strong effect on you. Going through that, we call it a rumination kind of cycle, where it just bothered you for very long. And that probably drained the life out of you.
Absolutely, definitely, Erich. It was very intense, and also the reality of it is, you feel like when you go through this harsh times of condemnation feeling, guilt feelings, when you feel like you've done something wrong, even the smallest things, you would almost then put on yourself, now you failed the Lord there.
Yes.
And the other pressure that you put on yourself then, I felt like, was always, but there's something wrong with my faith.
Yes.
It felt like, yes, but somewhere I'm going to lose my faith. And why am I not getting this feelings of guilt sorted out? Why do I feel this condemnation? It's almost like you can't fix it. Yes. And so you just put more pressure on yourself, and later on you feel like now because it's also a thing of you not wanting to fail as a Christian.
Yes.
Because for me it was a thing of, okay, now I've been given this platform that I feel like the Lord has given me, and there's this big responsibility, that I know is a reality, but you become so aware and conscious of the fact that you are going to fail as a Christian, and people are going to say, look at him, he doesn't have faith. It's actually, because why is he struggling with the small things like this guilt and this condemnation, and I became a lot aware of people around me, kind of also think of what do they think. Yes. So it's a lot of stuff that you put on yourself that I think just drains you. It
drains you, and it causes a lot of inner turmoil. Because, when we go through inner turmoil like that, and it becomes a vicious cycle in our minds, because we get stuck in this thought pattern where we are blamed and we are guilty. And that guilt has that sense of punishment, that condemnation. And this is contrary to what the Word says, because the Word says in Romans 8 verse 1, there is therefore now no more condemnation for those who are in Christ. And we are already pleasing to God, because Christ's sacrifice at the cross was a sweet aroma. It was a burnt offering as in the old days. So the Lord was pleased with his offering. He took all of the sin and the penalty and all of the shortcomings, and where we missed, he already bore it on himself. But now there's a sincere desire to please the Lord. You experience this tremendous responsibility that you probably also enhanced for yourself, because that's what we do, because we want to really not miss it.
Yes.
And there's also then this fear of missing it and being a disappointment to the Lord and others, and that just becomes too much. I can understand that is a huge emotional drain and a burden.
Yes.
And it starts with obsessive thinking, doesn't it? It later becomes such an obsession, and you get stuck in a catch-22 pattern where you just cannot fix it.
Yes.
The more you try, the worse it becomes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's a terrible place to be in. How did you find a way out of that? What did the Lord do?
Yes, Erich, I think, there was also for me a turning point in this. I think a lot of stuff happened. I think when after that course, the second year that I did it, when I came back, a lot of stuff changed for me. Well, not immediately. I was struggling with a lot of stuff. In that, I think it was still a few months, maybe 6 or even a year, that I was traveling, doing my shows and trying to, sort stuff out, because I was struggling even with my business and the people that I was working for. There was a lot of battles, and I'm struggling to sort things out. I remember sitting in meetings a lot of time, trying to sort things out, but it was as if a lot of things crashed.
Yes.
And
a lot of stress, additional stress that you
yes,
had.
especially that, relationship stress that just started building, until a point where a lot of it stopped. I remember I stopped a lot of, just business-wise, a lot of changes happened, and then just on a day, I remember I was speaking just with a friend of mine, and people was just encouraging me, maybe I should just go and see someone, see someone, psychiatrist, or just someone that can help me. And I remember I was always kicking against that, and I think that's even part of that whole thing of me, not wanting to fail the Lord, and feeling like, yes, once you get help from someone that's a psychologist, or it's
You're
again
crazy.
that thing of now you failed.
Now you failed again. That becomes another failure.
Absolutely, and you feel like you can't. That's almost a no when you're a Christian, because then you're almost saying, no, God can't fix you. When you do that.
Ooh, that's very important what you're saying there.
Yes.
So even if you... That's very important what you're saying there, because if you then get help,
Yes.
then you are also stuck. So you're stuck with the problem,
Yes.
and then if you get help, you're also a failure. So it's such a double whammy. You're not going to get out of that. Okay, so but you did seek help.
I remember, someone telling me, and then a friend of mine told me he's got a guy that really, is a psychologist, or but he knows the Lord, and I think that's, and he also he's a, I think the guy said that person sometimes get criticized that he goes too much spiritual, and well, that was you at the end of the day, Erich.
Yeah.
And and I really felt like, because the other guy was also a mentor of mine, someone that I really know, and I've been walking a road with, and that person, I trusted in that, and I really felt, okay, let's go, and and come and see you. And I remember specifically the turning point. One day we were sitting here in your office. I remember it was me, you, and Marnu was the other guy, and I was actually still, and this the crazy thing, even in that broken state of mind of where I was, I think that was the worst point. When I was sitting here, I think I was kind of on my worst, and that was like 3 years ago, maybe. And I was actually, it was in my mind that I was still going to do that year, the same course, the same 2.5, because they actually said, they invited me back, to go and do it again. 2.5 months. I was on my way there again. And I remember I was telling this to you and Marnu, and immediately you guys told me, you shouldn't do this. If you do this now, you will totally burn out. And I remember even sitting here fighting against it, because I really felt like, no, I feel like the Lord said, I have to go and do this. So nobody's going to tell me no.
Oh.
And I remember we did a 2-hour session or so, and I was telling you a lot of stuff. You saw how broken I was at that stage. And going home, I remember I went lied on my bed for a few minutes, and it was as if the stuff just sinked in. And it's as if I knew it was the Lord. And I remember you guys, or Marnu was saying, in the council, 2 or 3, something about that. There's wisdom in that.
Yes.
And it was 2 Christian brothers there that really told me. And, for me, just after that, having a few sessions more with you, I just realized how I needed to receive again the truths about the Bible and about us, our right standing with the Lord. And this was now 3 years ago. And I can honestly say it took me 3 years with sessions with you and other, just Christian friends that I trusted. It took me 3 years to come to a place where I'm not 100% restored now yet, but I am so much better. And I feel like if it took a lot of time to just come back to a place where I had to realize that. I remember the one time you were saying also, or even in that session you were saying, that I have to realize, I have to know the one truth, which was, if I don't tell anyone about the Lord Jesus, or I don't do anything for the Lord until the day I die, I'm still a child of God, and that I will never lose that. Sure. Now, truths like that fell in my heart, and I just realized this is the way that I'm going to restore and realize that.
It's so wonderful. The truth sets us free, and that's Jesus. So I hear that you came to a point there that you realized, I have to now stop giving and start receiving.
Yes,
and I have to get to a place where I am ministered to.
Yes,
so you allowed Christian brothers and Christian people and the Lord to start to minister to you. Yes. And I can hear that was a process of restoration. It wasn't just as if you were restored overnight. Yes. It took a while. So it takes a while for us to get to a place of restoration. We do not just get there in a short space, because sometimes we are in a culture of quick fixes. It's a fast food industry, fast life, and our fast healing as well. So just give me my healing. It took me 3-4 years to get to a place of burnout, but I want this in 2 or 3 days, please. you know? Yeah, exactly. So just sort it out, please. I regularly see that in my practice. 2 or 3 sessions, please. It's now so expensive, you know. But sometimes when we enter that process, it takes time to really digest the truths of the Lord and to incorporate them into your life and to make adjustments in your life. So you get new inputs, but it takes a while for you to implement them. And you get other people do not necessarily like your changes, and so when you make new changes, you also have to deal with other people's reactions. And I can hear that one of the key things that you learned, and this is very important, is that sense of freedom, that I'm a child of God no matter what I've done. Yes. And no matter what I'm going to do, because you can't sin your way out of salvation. This is a very important thing, and there is a lot of debate about this in the church. But if you look at what the Lord says, He gave you a free gift of righteousness, Romans 5:17. It's a free gift, and it comes through faith. And that sets us free, just to know that we are accepted in the Lord's eyes because of what Jesus did for us. But I can hear that those things really touched you, and you started on a journey of rediscovery. in your relationship with the Lord, but also with yourself and your life, making lifestyle adjustments. What happened with you further on?
Yeah, yes, Erich. I think what I also learned from you a lot, you know, is, and I think it was a process that the Lord was also challenging me with, you know, in a lot of stuff is to really make yourself, and the Afrikaans is geld. What do you say?
Yeah, to assert yourself.
Yes, assert yourself and know, you know, that you can get to a place where where sometimes, even if though it takes courage, you know, that you can get to a place where you can make your own decisions and be in control of not your own life, but be in control of certain important stuff in your life, like work, for instance.
Yes.
You know, and just you know, the ability, even though I'm still struggling with that, but just the ability to say no.
Yes.
You know, and be assertive about that whenever you feel like there's a great opportunity, but you feel like this is not going to, you know, and to be able with assertiveness to say no, you know.
Yes.
And I know in the past it was always, yes, you know, through a lot of times in my life, I was always struggling with making decisions. And I think I think part of my personality also, and being an artist, is kind of a soft way that we have, and not wanting to displease people. Also, I think one part of my character is also not wanting to please people. It's so easy to get to a place where you let other people kind of make decisions for you, because you're so scared that you might make the wrong decisions. And I remember I was a lot of times in my life in that place.
Yes.
Stuck, you know, with confusion, not knowing what decisions to make, and feel like, you know, and I feel like even in this burnout time of mine, I think God was still so much in control, and He even took this thing that happened to me, you know, took this burnout to reveal so much truth to me, and teaching me so much in this dry season about myself, and just helping me to get to a place where I can make my own decisions and to be assertive in them.
That's wonderful. So you took back the control of your decision to say yes, to say no. And that's also with using our boundaries and saying no where we need to say no, and saying no for the right things, or yes for the right things, and, you know, keeping the bad things out. We see that in a wonderful book from Dr. John Townsend and Henry Cloud, Boundaries. It's a momentous book that also affected my life, and that is one of the key things that also empowered you. And I can hear you also made decisions on lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, Erich. And I mean, it was a hard time, that, because especially of the fact that I knew, I think there was, if I remember correctly, it was like 9 months almost where I really didn't do anything.
Yes.
And it was it was so challenging, especially for me, being a creative guy, and kind of, you know, being busy a lot with traveling and you know, a lot of that. I knew just from that session that we were here, I realized, okay, I was in this burnout state. Now the only way that I'm going to really get better or heal this is to really take this season that I feel like the Lord has given me, and I'm so blessed. I was at a place where I remember that first 3 months I actually had no shows booked.
Yes.
You know, and so yeah, after that, for 9 months, I really forced myself to, for instance, to really not do a lot of stuff, because I, you know, not travel everywhere, and you know, and I remember, I think for that first 9 months, I really slept till 10 o'clock every morning, and but then I was awake at 6, but I forced myself. I remember
to rest.
It was so challenging, because there was always this desire to stand up and do stuff.
Yes.
But I really experienced in my body that I didn't have the energy.
Yes.
I was drained. I really felt that burnout. And I made that decision, even though it was very hard, to really lie down, and you know, and I'm so glad today. I'm so glad about it.
It's so wonderful. You know, when we go through burnout, we have to remember that we are body, soul, spirit, and we have to look after our bodies, and that includes just sleeping. So sleeping, healthy eating, doing sports. You also had all of those areas checked.
Yes.
And at the end of the season, you got married.
Yes.
You brought out a CD called Woestijn, that's desert. So, and the Lord really put on your heart some a significant song that touches my heart. In Afrikaans, it's my arms is oop.
Yes.
Where the Lord is standing with open arms, inviting you to come to Him.
Yes.
What happened in your heart when writing that song?
Yes, yeah, it was a special time. It was almost, an experience of feeling that the Lord really. I think it's so great when you feel like the Lord is so intensely involved in your desert season.
Yes.
And that the only thing that kept me together in that is the hope that the Lord is with me and that the Lord is going to use this.
Yes.
I think just the chats that me and you had, every week was just so encouraging, and it was so hopeful because I really felt the Lord was showing me the purpose in this. And if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for hope, I'm telling you, I can't imagine somebody going through something like a burnout without the hope of Christ. And I think it'll always be a special CD for me, the desert, because it described, even with the fun stuff that I did on it. I'm a comedian, and there's still a lot of comedy songs in there.
Yes.
But the deep songs and the
From
ballads,
the heart.
it's from the heart, and it describes that season. And I felt like that song was almost it was summing up just maybe what the Lord wanted to do with me in that season. That out of this bad season and bad desert time, God gave me a song that invites people to come to Him and receive Him.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a special song.
It's wonderful to hear how the Lord made all things work together for the good for you. And in the end, this burnout, looking after yourself, working with your mind, with how you're thinking, getting that aligned, working with those obsessions, and then also in your spirit with your relationship with the Lord, and then even getting involved in your local with friends and family and church. And so it's a holistic approach to get and to really deal with burnout. Robbie, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. It was a privilege to have you here, and we are blessed to hear your story. And may the Lord work with you, and may the Lord help you if you're at a place of burnout. And you're welcome to also visit my website, mattersofthesoul.org. Robbie, thanks again. It was a privilege having you here.
Erich, thank you. It was great. Thanks a lot.